Welcome back. It's road trip time. We're going on a bit of a road trip for the next couple of weeks. So it's down in Melbourne, over to the Barossa Valley and some areas around Adelaide. I'll show you the whole map here. It's about 3,000 kilometres all up. We'll go through a bit of how it is to road trip in a Tesla. See a lot of FUD out there and people saying you can't road trip in a Tesla and it's a horrible experience, that kind of stuff. One of the things before I bought this car was hire a Tesla for a week. Took it up to Brisbane and back from Canberra. It was the best experience ever, and hopefully I'll be able to show a little bit of that. This drive will be a little bit different in that we're really taking our time, going to be visiting some friends along the way, stopping in a few different places, doing some scenic drives, so it won't be the straight Canberra to Brisbane trip that we'll do later on, but it should still give you an idea. Now in this case I want to try a few different chargers, so I'm not going to actually take the suggestion that's given us. I'm going to remove the charging stops. So in this case I want to actually navigate to one of the new charging stations that got built in Albury, which is actually one of the first version 4 cabinets that we've had installed. So it's saying we're going to get there with 19% remaining, which is plenty. I'm happy to get there with 10%. We've done it with 5 before. Not a real issue. There's plenty of options, and if it encounters a headwind or something like that where it's not going to get enough range, it will warn you. It'll redirect you to another charger. You'll also notice we've got the speed cameras that's in the recent update popping up as well. Anyhow, we'll get in the road. I'll pop back in as we go and show you some other features and some of the benefits the Tesla has for a road trip, and we'll go from there. Okay, so we're about an hour in. We've got 2 hours and 45 roughly to go to the Supercharger at Albury. It's actually saying we're going to have 22% now, so we've gained a few percent on the way. Currently using FSD. So this car is equipped with FSD and EAP. To explain a little bit more, when I say EAP and AP and FSD, there's 3 different levels of autonomy in the Tesla vehicles we get in Australia. AP is Autopilot, and that's the free one you get with any Tesla. It'll do pretty much everything we're doing today, and it'll maintain lanes, it'll maintain speed. It won't change lanes. So basic Autopilot, you only get your lane centering and speed control. If you want to change lanes, you change lanes. It'll take it out of Autopilot and you have to re-engage it. Enhanced Autopilot gives you the lane change. It also gives you a couple other things that currently aren't available in this car because it doesn't have ultrasonic sensors, but are coming soon. Is the Auto Park, Smart Summon and Summon, where you can have the car move in and out of parking spots. If you've got a tight parking spot, you can get out of the car, have it park into the parking spot, that kind of thing. FSD in Australia doesn't give you much more at all. It gives you everything Enhanced Autopilot gives you, but it also has some traffic light control. It'll stop at traffic lights. If it's green, it'll tell you it's green, but it'll need you to confirm, otherwise it will stop. So if it comes up to a green light, you've got to confirm with the accelerator push to say, yep, I can see it's green, confirmed, it'll go through. So it's not very useful in its current iteration. The versions in America obviously are much more advanced, and like I said earlier, they will take you anywhere and do absolutely all the driving for you with very little interventions at this stage with the current versions. Hopefully they'll be out here in the coming months, and that'll really enhance the functionality of full self-driving. With any of those systems, you are always in control and responsible, so you do need to keep an eye out what's going on. You can't just be nodding off or on your phone. It's got a camera up here that'll watch your eyes. If you're not paying attention, if you're using your phone, it'll very quickly warn you, and if you don't acknowledge the warning and keep doing it, you'll eventually get banned from using it. So it is good in that way, that it makes sure that you are paying attention, because it isn't perfect. We've had a couple of occasions that unfortunately didn't catch on camera where it wanted to take an exit lane. It actually indicated and let us know, so it was good. It made it very easy to avoid it. But yeah, you need to have a hand on the wheel or very close to the wheel to be ready to take over at any time. I keep my foot near the accelerator or on the accelerator, just resting, so that if it does a slowdown, a occasionally it'll do that passing a truck, that kind of thing. You can catch it very quickly, and it doesn't really, you'll only lose a couple of kilometres per hour if you're paying attention and doing it the right way. But even with all that, it does save a lot of fatigue, and it really is a very useful tool. FSD in Australia is very limited, only on the highways. You can tell the difference with a single line rather than the two lines on the outside, normally on AP, Autopilot. So that's one of the great things with a long drive, is you can stick it in FSD, EAP or Autopilot, whichever one you've got, and it really takes a lot of the concentration out of the drive. It's got awesome lane centering. It's one of the best lane centering I've seen in any car. It's amazing how many cars struggle to maintain a lane even when it's not even bendy. The BYDs, unfortunately at the moment, really struggle. But even the top German brands, where you get a bend in the road, that kind of stuff, the tests that have been run on them compared to the Teslas is amazing. How well it can maintain a lane. So we can be totally hands off. It'll nag me every now and again to put my hands on the wheel, just so I feel some pressure on the wheel, but it gives you the ability to monitor what's going on around you. It's a lot safer, I believe. So it'll actually tell you if it wants you to change lanes, if it sees. Actually, there's a few different settings you can have it on. You can have it so it automatically changes lanes. I don't have that on currently. Or it'll suggest to you it's time to change lanes. There's a slower car up front, and you confirm by hitting the indicator, and it goes ahead and changes the lane for you. It's pretty good about getting out of the fast lane these days too. It does have slowdowns like that occasionally. So this is Julian in the future. Just a quick note on this one. So this felt pretty dramatic in the car, mainly because I wasn't paying full attention. I was talking and wasn't prepared for the slowdown, but it really highlights how much you perceive what gets referred to as phantom braking, which is actually just a slowdown of a few kilometres per hour. It's actually not anywhere near as dramatic as it feels in the car, and really, if you're paying attention as you should be, and I was in the subsequent slowdowns, it really doesn't get to slow down much at all. It's pretty good about getting out of the fast lane these days, especially if there's a car behind you. The system isn't totally perfect, and it's very limited in Australia. So you'll notice, I don't know if you caught that there, it just changed from AP Autopilot to FSD, full self-driving, and you'll see that it'll change based on the roads and whether there's entryways into the highway and that kind of stuff. So that's just a limitation we have here in Australia. It does occasionally have slowdowns passing trucks, that kind of thing. You know, there are things to watch out for, so you've got to be attentive, but it does relieve 90% of the driving load and really makes long trips a lot more enjoyable, and you arrive a lot more rested and less fatigued. So future Julian here again. This is a problem I found that I hadn't experienced before. I'm trying to change lanes here, and it cancelled out. So what the problem here on this particular stretch of road is, it's got a large camber on each side of the middle of the highway, so it slopes downwards on each side, and the cameras kind of freak out when it tries to change lanes. It can't see the other side of the road very well, but as you'll see in the video here, holding the indicator button down managed to get it to change lanes. You'll notice there it changed back to autopilot because there's a cutting into the road up ahead. That's another one of the limitations we have in Australia with the regulations. So look, the way full self-driving works in America is fantastic. It works, city streets, traffic lights, everything, but we don't have that full capability here in Australia yet. Hopefully soon. And sometimes it'll do weird things like want to change lanes where you don't need to. You can just cancel that, and that's why I have it set to confirm. But like I said, it's a fantastic system for long drives, for keeping your level of fatigue down, taking care of all the naff stuff that you don't need to really worry about, allowing you to keep a better lookout. You've got 7 pairs of eyes all around the car looking at everything around you, so it can react to things and does a fantastic job. So with all the different versions of Autopilot, they all operate pretty much the same way. There's different graphics on the screen like I mentioned earlier, but to activate, you can either do a double press or a single press. In my case, I've got it set to single press, so one press takes it off and one press takes it back on again. If you set it to double press, the first press will give you a traffic aware cruise control, so just speed control. It won't do the lane centering, it'll just maintain your distance between the car in front. With all of them, you can change the distance between the car in the front by using this right scroll wheel, left and right. So at the moment it's 7 car lengths, 6, 5, 4, 3. So you can change that as you drive. So we're almost at Albury Superchargers, and you'll notice here it's got a little sign there saying preconditioning battery for fast charging. Something Teslas do, they know you're going to a fast charger, so they'll get the battery to the proper temperature, to the perfect temperature to make the charging as fast as possible, whether it needs to heat up or cool down, mostly heat up. So that's currently going ahead. Looks like we're going to arrive there with 25%, which is a lot more than we expected. Certainly can do this trip with one charge, but as I explained, it's not the most efficient way of doing things. We'll have a look at the stats when we get there and see where the efficiency is coming from, and go from there. But I'll see you soon at the Albury Supercharger. Alright, so here we are at Albury Superchargers. They're the first V4 cabinets we've had in Australia. There's a few more now, but I wanted to try them out because of that fact. There's a whole bunch of them here. It's a nice location, not too far off the highway. Good signage getting in here, so you direct you straight to the charging area. I think there's about 12, 15 chargers here, 15, yep, and they're all free at the moment, so no queues. Can have a quick look at our efficiency. As we said, we've arrived here with quite a bit more than we expected. Saying there that a 4.4 kilometre wind cost us 0.8. Driving, we added 3.6. Climate, obviously the air conditioning was a bit more efficient than expected, so we added 3.4, and we lost 4.1 on elevation. But look, yeah, it's usually pretty good, the estimate, and if there's any issues, if you do get a big headwind or something like that, it'll redirect you. But we'll jump out and plug her in. One of the great things with the Tesla is the charging experience. It's just so easy. You pull up, pull your charger out, push the button, plug it in, and away we go. It's saying if we want to just make this a one-stop trip, we can do a 30-minute charge, and then we'll make it to Melbourne. We're not going to do that long. We'll grab some lunch, so we don't know how long we'll take, but as soon as we finish lunch, we'll be ready to go. I'll do one more stop on the way there because it'll be more efficient that way, and we'll be good to go. Okay, so we just got back from the car, had a nice sit-down meal, about 30 minutes, and use the bathrooms, etc, etc, etc. We're now at 94% already, which is pretty impressive. So we've got enough to make it all the way to Melbourne. However, I'm going to make another stop just to try out one of the EVIE chargers, which I haven't tried before, and see how they work. So we did a bit over 3.5 hours worth of driving, and we still had 25% left, so we could have easily gone 4.5 hours or more. People who think that you need to charge up every 2 hours on an EV and wait an hour to charge is not correct at all. We could have done 10-minute charge here and gone to the next one with no problem at all, and another 10 minutes would have got us to Melbourne with no issues. The car we're in is a rear-wheel drive, so it is the shortest range Tesla. You can get a long range one. Even though we do these trips, we're probably going to do another 3 of these sort of 2,000 to 3,000 kilometre trips this year. We don't see the need to have the long range. The short range does it just fine. And the long range also charges faster, so if you're doing a lot of trips and that is really a concern, then it's even easier. But honestly, short range gives us 430 odd kilometres. It's more than enough. Anyhow, we'll go ahead and unplug and get on our way. So just for interest, that charging session cost us $30.80 for a full charge. We'll do all the calculations at the end and work out what it would have cost us in petrol. That was, yeah, that's a pretty reasonable charge cost. And off we go. Alright, so we're halfway along our second leg. Going to charge up at the EVIE charging station at Avenel. haven't been to an EV charging station before, but they seem to be very popular in Victoria. There seem to be a lot of them, which is really great to see. I think it was Sensei, one of the viewers, who asked about going to some of these different charging stations, so that's a good idea, I thought, and we'll see how easy it is to charge up at a different charging station than it is in a Tesla one. The trip so far has been fantastic. Elon's doing a great job chauffeuring us. We've had a couple of minor issues, I think recorded on camera, where with the camber of the road, the cameras kind of freaked out a bit. They couldn't see the other lane and sort of tried to bail out halfway through, but holding the indicator down made it change. So the other thing we've had a couple of times is that it's gone past an exit and it's tried to indicate and take the exit, but it hasn't actually gone all the way. And a couple of times it's just started to indicate, and it's obviously second guessed and cancelled it out before it did anything. So I've had that before in a much earlier version back in November. It was a lot more, I guess, dramatic. It didn't indicate at all, and it kind of almost swerved. But obviously, if you're doing the right thing, you catch it, and it's no issue, so no safety issue. But this is a lot more gentle now, so they've improved that quite a bit, and it actually indicates as well, so you know it's coming, so you can stop it before it does it. Apart from that, we had a couple of slowdowns. We had a truck passing a truck. It did a minor slowdown, and passing another car that was wandering over its lane. Just freaked it out a little bit, and it slowed down a little bit. But again, if your foot's near the accelerator, you can catch that very quickly, and it's no issue. So overall, it's been a fantastic drive, and I'll give Elon a 9 out of 10 Uber rating. A couple more observations. It's been a good 5.5 hours worth of driving, and I haven't had a single steering wheel nag. Pretty much most of the time I've just had my hand kind of resting on the corner there, and it hasn't nagged me once, which has been good. We're about half an hour away from the EV chargers. The other one was we had a truck cross it in front of us a fair way out, but in previous versions it would have reacted, and slowed down for that. It correctly realised it wasn't an issue, and I was impressed to see it didn't even try to slow down for it, so that was good. Anyhow, about half an hour from now we'll be at the EVIE Avenel charger, and we'll have a look at that. So here we are, the EV at the amp hole at Avenel. Like I said, I haven't tried the EV chargers before, so this will be a bit of an experience. So it was a little bit of a challenge to find, but it's right at the amp hole, right off the highway. We'll go ahead and plug in and see how it goes. Assuming it's a CCS, yep. Now unfortunately, we have to manually open the charging port. Oh, a lot heavier than the Tesla chargers. I'll have to shut the video off and go to the app now to get it working. Alright, that was pretty painless. Had to go into the app and activate it. I don't have a charge card, although I have ordered one, so that's coming now. And we're slowly ramping up, so 95 kilowatts. Like I said, we don't need to charge here because we've already got enough to make it to Melbourne from that last charge. But I wanted to try these out, and it'll give us a bit of extra charge to drive around Melbourne for a bit. Just to, I'm sure I'll get comments in the comment section. With that last charge, normally I don't want to charge over 80%. I know it slows right down once you get to 80%. We just went and had something to eat, and by the time we'd finished, it had already got almost 100%. So those chargers are so fast these days, which is excellent. So we could have done a 10-minute charge there and a 10-minute charge here, and that would have been enough to make it to Melbourne as well. But in the end of the day, it didn't take us any extra time. We just did what we needed to do and came back, and we're ready to go. So I'll just probably stay here for another 10 minutes and stretch our legs, go to the bathroom, and then we'll head off to Melbourne. Alright, so we're back from the shop, just got a few little bits and pieces and stretch the legs and everything else. I'm a little bit disappointed in the charging speed. I thought these were supposed to be 350 kilowatt according to the app, but they're only charging at 76. But yeah, look, they work pretty well. I'm getting an RFID card, which will make things easier next time. I think it's good we're seeing so many pop up. The Tesla stations have a lot more reliability, and you're getting, if you've got 16 in one spot, that's a lot better than having 2. You never know if these are going to be both used, whereas a Tesla app will tell you right on the screen how many are available and that kind of thing, so that makes it a lot better experience in my book. You don't have to worry about apps or cards, you just plug it in and away you go. So yeah, it's a good, it's good to see more of these popping up, especially this close to the highway. This is right on the highway, which is great. Especially if you have a car behind you, it gets quite naggy to say get out of the right hand lane, which is great. Okay, so we're getting closer to our destination now. I'm back to manual driving at the moment. I don't quite trust the FSD versions we have here in Australia on undivided roads. They work pretty well, but they can get prone to getting freaked out by cars coming around a corner, that kind of stuff, and slowing down. And I just prefer to drive these sorts of roads manually until we get the versions that are much more advanced. We're at least a year behind what they have in the US, and there's been some pretty amazing improvements made during that time. Overall, I'm really impressed with how it's handled the trip though. It's definitely a lot of improvements over the last road trip I did, even though we're on a kind of a branch that hasn't been really had much work done on it. Hopefully the regulators will get their finger out soon and we can have the safer version. That will do a lot more. We're going to arrive with plenty of charge left. As I said, that last charge stop wasn't necessary based on the fact that we spent a bit more time having lunch. So we only had to spend I think about 10 minutes in that last. We didn't have to. We spent about 10 minutes in that last charge stop, which is about what you'd spend in a fuel stop anyway on average. So we've done one charge stop of 10 minutes and had lunch. So if you come down in a petrol vehicle, the same thing would have applied. You still would have had to get your petrol, spend a good 10 minutes doing that, and then go and have lunch. So we really haven't taken any extra time for this trip. The efficiency of the Tesla is awesome. That is one of the big highlights of the Tesla, especially the new Highland model. The aerodynamics and efficiency of it is second to none. A lot of the other EVs are having to cram in twice the size in battery pack just to get the same range. And like I said, this is a rear-wheel drive short range version, which is giving me 430 kilometers. Was enough to get to Melbourne here with one charge stop if I wanted to. So the efficiency is awesome. You're not dragging around this big battery you don't need, which is why this myth exists that the EVs are heavier than ICE vehicles. That's not true, at least for Tesla. This car here weighs the same as our Camry when it's got a full tank of fuel. So there's very little difference, and same with the Model Y and a comparable RAV4 style. There's bugger all difference between the two weights. But when you start getting into these cars that are loading in 100 kilowatt batteries just to try and match the Tesla range, then you start to get to much heavier vehicles. Anyhow, probably next time you hear from me, I'll be in the hotel and I'll get some figures of what we've spent and what we would have spent in petrol. The last charge stop I forgot to mention was $9.20 or something like that. So we spent about $39 in charging, and I can guarantee you we would have spent a lot more than that on fuel. So even though charging at Superchargers is, I term very expensive compared to charging at home, where I could average about $2 a tank. Sometimes get paid paid to charge. Sometimes like it cost me up to $7, but average around $2 a tank. It's a lot more expensive when you're on the road having to supercharge, but it's still a hell of a lot cheaper than fuel. Welcome to sunny Melbourne, or Melbourne anyway. Made it here last night, no issues, as you saw in the video. It was a great drive. Having the Autopilot definitely makes a big difference. So the total cost for the trip was actually $42. The charge at the EVIE charger ended up being $11.90 or something like that. So it was just over $30 at the Albury Supercharger and $11.90 or something like that for the one we did at the EVIE. So we could have just done that one charge. It obviously isn't the most efficient way of doing things. The most efficient way, we could have just done 10 to 12 minute charges, and that would have been the fastest way to get here. But the priority was getting a good lunch and just let the car do its own thing, which is a great way to do an EVIE trip. You know, rather than trying to shove a McDonald's burger down your throat, which would have cost more and been pretty horrible. We had a nice sit-down meal at a great place. The commercial club there at Albury is really good value meals. We ran into a nice couple there as we were leaving, had a lot of questions about EVs, which was great to see, curiosity, get some actual information from people who drive them rather than the media who tend to make things up. On that point, actually, there was an article recently from the, what they call themselves, the car expert, who apparently did a test from Sydney to Melbourne here with two BMWs. They had one ICE version, one EV version, and claimed that it took 2 hours extra for the EV version, and it cost them $16 more than the petrol version. So in this case here, we've done the exact same trip almost from Canberra rather than Sydney, but it's the same road in a proper EV, and it's cost us half the amount it did on the for a petrol car. Would have cost us $85 in our ICE vehicle. Hasn't added any extra time. The time we spent at the getting lunch, we weren't waiting for the EVIE at all. It was ready well before we were, and the extra stop we did, that 10-minute stop, was a voluntary one. We didn't have to do it. You would have had to fuel up in a nice vehicle anyway, so it really hasn't cost us any extra time at all. So as far as the charging goes, Albury is an awesome spot to get charges. 16 spots there. It was empty when we got there, or one person had just left before we got there. So obviously it's a good location, good food. I think it's really a good example of a great charging stop. The EVIE charger, it was okay. I didn't mind it. It was a lot slower than I expected. I only got about 70 kilowatts out of it, but it was okay. It's good to see a lot of them around. Unfortunately, there's only usually two at one spot, so it's not as handy as the Tesla chargers. They're not quite as reliable. But yeah, look, as we've proven, this is the shortest range Tesla with the slowest charging speed, and certainly was no slower than an ICE vehicle in doing this trip. A hell of a lot cheaper and a hell of a lot more enjoyable, I think. You know, pulling up to a gas station and having to sit there holding the pump and then having to go find food and go to the toilet, that kind of stuff just isn't enjoyable in my book. Being able to sit down to a nice meal while the car does its own thing and then just continue on is great. I think yeah, you have to stop every 3 hours or so, or we could have gone 4.5 hours in this car in this trip. I like to stop every 3 hours anyway. That's the best way to do long trips. It's a lot safer that way, even with the advantage of the autopilot and that kind of stuff, which does help quite a lot. I think it's still best to stop every 3 hours, get that leg stretch, get some food and toilet breaks, that kind of stuff. So yeah, I don't know how to do that with a nice vehicle as well. So yeah, I think it was a great trip. That's our first leg done. We've got a few days here. By the time you see this video, we're probably already halfway to Adelaide. We'll do the Great Ocean Road, and stay tuned for that video in a few days. As always, please give us a like, subscribe and share the video. Catch you next time.